don't just stop at the application process, because I think, it's kind of like if you equate it to retail. Oh, you get this beautiful ad on TV. Adidas has got this new pair of shoes, and you're like, oh, I love those shoes, and you go run and get them, and then you put them on, and they're the worst pair of shoes in your life, and you're like, oh, this is horrendous. And then they just forget about you and don't do anything after that. What's going to happen? Well, you're probably never going to buy a pair of Adidas again, are you? Because the message that you were sold up front, the promise that was made to you, was not actually delivered on, and wasn't carried through the process. What would have been better is if you had great after-sales service, that when the shoes didn't fit correctly, you took them back and they sat and understood a little bit more about you and matched the right pair of shoes to you. It's a ridiculous comparison, but it's a simplified version of the same thing. The application, the shiny, come and be part of something, come and study at our institution, 100 years of history, or digital first, or whatever your messaging is, whatever marketing you're putting out there, are you carrying that through the process, through enrollment, through registration, through engagement? And so now, as we get to retention, we're going to be talking about how do we continue that journey, keep the high level of engagement up. We've got to keep our eyes on our students. We've got to make sure that, not in a creepy way, of course, but we've got to make sure that we're collecting the right data and the right information so that we can use that information to provide better service and better product back to normal. So Microsoft, for this is just an example. It's not completely set up for education, but this is called Customer Insights. It's a module that Microsoft have in their business application suite. And the beautiful thing about this module is that although it's Microsoft based, it is not specific or exclusive to Microsoft. You can take your Oracle ITS database and connect it in here. You can take your Excel spreadsheets. You can take some other kind of SQL backend data warehouse that you've got sitting over there with IT, data from anywhere, from your Exchange server, from your contact center, whatever the case may be. We can bring that data together into this one universe of data, this customer insights universe, where the data is centered on the individual. And we can start looking at things like attribution. They came from this campaign, and then they bought this particular program or course or qualification, and then they did something else. That's what is the attribution? Well, it started off with that particular campaign. How do we amplify that? How do we repeat that success in the future? Did everybody follow that same channel, or did they go through different processes? The more data we collect about our students, and obviously we have to follow POPI regulations and GDPR and all those good things, and the system absolutely does that. But how can we use our interactions with them to create new opportunities, to go and spot the potential for churn? Think about this. What about students who are starting to struggle to pay their bills, right? They're not proud of it, they're good students, they just can't afford it. I mean, I think that is a story that we hear too much and too many times. Somebody couldn't get their degree, even though they passed everything, they couldn't go get it because they couldn't pay their tuition. And so if we can see early signals of problems there, we can take action, we can do something about it. Not wait until the end, until disappointment comes. How do we start connecting those students with financial problems, with institutions and organizations that can help, that can provide financial aid, that can potentially set them up with internship programs and maybe take on some of that financial responsibility, not hustling right at the end like everybody does because we're not paying attention to it. If we set up a specific campaign or a specific set of data points to look and see early detection for poor account payers, we can start intervening and we can make that whole experience with them so much better. It's not just about cross-selling and upselling. This is about a brand loyalty. Imagine you helped a student to connect with the right person that got their tuition paid for them. How much would that mean to them? How much would that mean to you in future? Who would they tell? If they're digital native and they're on their phone and they're tweeting about it and they're on TikTok and they're making a video about how happy they are and you made their dreams come true. Imagine what that could do. You can't pay money to get that kind of advertising. And so it's those little things, it's those little connections that you're potentially not thinking through that data can bring to the fore and can say, hey, look here, here's an opportunity. All right. The next piece is that, while students are studying, they need help. They need to know maybe when the exam is booked. They maybe need to, maybe they're in residency somewhere and something's gone wrong with the plumbing, whatever it is. They might just want to be connected to a study group. They might want to join a club. They might need to know how to pay their account. They might want an academic transcript, whatever it is. They need help, and you need to help them. And so, again, Dynamics has got this ability to log those queries that are coming. This is just a generic kind of case coming in, and we call it a case because it can be anything. It can be an HR request. I've had some harassment on campus and I need help. It could be, oh, my computer's not working, my email account's messed up, so I need to be routed to IT to go and get that sorted out. It might be a housing related issue, as I said before. It might be something related to faculty, and we need to escalate that. And so using the same kind of robust structure and system can help us to step through each of these stages, each of these departments, and help us to satisfy the students' needs and requirements. We can apply things like service level agreements, which is really a turnaround time. So we're saying, hey, we want to benchmark an 8-hour turnaround on these types of queries because it's super important. Or this one's not so important. We've got 40 hours kind of to respond within a business hours. That's no problem. But importantly, we want to track this. We want to track these claims. We want to link it back to that record of Norma's so that we can say, okay, how many queries did she put through in her life with us, and were they dealt with appropriately? Did we sort her out? Was she happy with them? Maybe we want to send out a post kind of issue resolution survey to say, rate us on a scale of 1 to 5, how satisfied you are, all those kind of things. We want to help improve our service to you. If you don't have a system to control these things, how are you doing it? You're probably buried under email. The phone is constantly ringing. You're forgetting things. You're writing things down all over the place. It looks like a disaster around you. And so, using systems, we can get through things a lot quicker. We can not forget things, and we can follow processes that help us to give great service. We can also have access to things like knowledge base articles where you might not know the answer, but somebody in an organization does. So how can you connect to that person who has that answer, or go and read up from a frequently asked questions set and then provide that answer straight away? We work with the Nelson Mandela University down in PE, and they have a student contact center which is driven and run by the students themselves. It's always different students every year. They do it as part of like a giving back to the university, and they sit in the contact center and they answer queries. And they deal with things like account balances and maybe something related to the person's transcripts or whatever the case may be. But it's students dealing with students, and they get trained on the system and they answer because they have a knowledge base at their disposal. They have all the information at their disposal. We've integrated with their back-end student management system, so I can see all that information in one place. And so we're giving them the capability to service students with students, which is, I think, pretty cool. And again, the conversation of channels comes up because this service, this helping keep that student happy, retaining them in the best possible way, is about doing it over multiple channels. And so there's some really, really cool stuff at the moment in the tech world about how to do this omnichannel, how to deal with omnichannel. And omnichannel just means many channels all at once and across channels. And so what I've got here is a couple of examples of how we can go from dealing with a bot, a virtual bot, to then dealing with a human being. And so Microsoft's got this really awesome piece of technology called the virtual agent, where you can go set up sort of plain English queries that say, when Norma comes to us and she, let's say, contacts us over Facebook Messenger, we want to then ask her some questions saying, hey, thanks for contacting us. What are you contacting me for? What is it related to? And then give her some options to choose through. And then based on the answers that she provides, you can go through different paths, branches as we call them. And so this, in the past, if you wanted to set up a bot, chat bot or whatever, you had to hire developers and it would cost a hell of a lot of money. And they would have to write code, and that code would be deployed and need to be tested. And typically the people writing the code and the people needing the answers done are not the same people. And so, what a nightmare. Now you can go and use the virtual agent to go and build those things yourself without code. If you need code, if you want to reach out to fetch an account balance or something like that, you can't even do that without code. It depends on how we've gone and helped set that up. And that's where the power of Microsoft starts coming to the fore. If you're using something like Dynamics along with a virtual agent, you can go get access to that data straight away. You don't need Dynamics to have the virtual agent. You can run this separately, and you can have a virtual bot on top of your existing IT investments. And that's a beautiful thing. You can take the pieces that you need and you can use them as you want to. So now, in this virtual agent, I can go and simulate and see, okay, this is the chat. I provided my email. Then the bot responded with, I see your smart printer you purchased on blah, blah, blah. That person said yes. And said, okay, I can contact you. Would you like me to do so? And it's asking for some questions. Now, this conversation that the bot has, at some point, this student might want to deal with a human being. They don't want to talk to the bot anymore because they have a more complex question or whatever. So the bot can go and answer as much as you set it up. It can go fetch data. Hey, what's my account balance? Oh, here it is. I've gone and fetched it for you. Or what was my grade on that last exam? Oh, there it is. I went and fetched it for you. That's what it is. Now I've got a query. Oh, look, I'm not happy with that grade, or I'm not happy with that account balance. I need to speak to someone. How do we hand that off? And so that's when omnichannel comes into it to say, well, actually, here's the chat or the history of the chat there, and this has been routed to me as an agent. And here I sit and I go, oh, okay, I can see that you've had a conversation with a bot. I can have a look up at the top here. Because Microsoft's technology at the moment is amazing, it's reading through all the conversation that's happening, and it's detecting sentiment. It's looking and saying, are you angry? Are you using big capital letters? You're not listening to me. Are you getting frustrated? Because if you are getting frustrated and your sentiment is poor, then I need to respond as a human being to you in a different way than if you're positive. And so I can see that right at my fingertips. I've got access to canned responses. I can collaborate with a colleague to help with this query if I don't know the answer. I've got your record over here. I can see your recent history, the timeline of interaction communication. I've got everything I want. At the top here, I can look at further knowledge base to break down and see how do I solve your query as quickly as possible. So what Microsoft is doing is giving a single window to let's call it a contact center agent or a person trying to help with queries to get these things done as quickly as possible. And this can be any channel. It can be WhatsApp Messenger, it could be Facebook Messenger, it could be chat on the web, it could be email, it could be whatever. And we're routing these queries through this single engine that's making decisions. Who do I need to give this to? Who's available? Who's got work or too much work that can't take this? Somebody else got less work. Let's give this request over to them. So omnichannel is making all those decisions, and it's really quite fascinating how it works. So here's the customer student, Frida. She's coming in over a channel, can be pretty much any channel as I spoke to you about before. We're then going and categorizing it in the back end to say what kind of priority should we give this based on where it's coming from. So if it's coming through chat, it's high priority because they're there right now, they're talking to us. If they fill out a kind of contact form, okay, that goes through a slightly lower lower capacity or lower priority because I'm not necessarily expecting them to get back to me immediately. Or if I left a message or sent an email, it can go through a different set of prioritization. So you can define based on the channel what the priority is, and then we categorize it. And that's where bots are great because the bot can ask a couple of questions up front and say, why are you here? What do you need? So that I can route you to the right place. With omnichannel, what it can do is it can look at the team and assess skill level and capability level, and then make sure that we're sending the right queries through to the right people based on their ability to help with that query, which is pretty remarkable. So there's a lot of decisions and a lot of intelligence in the back end to make sure that Frida gets the answers that she needs. All right. So if we go back here, we want to make sure that we're serving Norma's needs across various departments, across the campuses, and like I said before, with that consistent handover from application through to enrollment, through to registration, through to etc. We want to make sure that service is being delivered consistently across everybody, all the departments, all the campuses. And so you can use Dynamics and you can use the systems in any department for any reason. Here's an example of the portal we did for Nelson Mandela University a while back, where, excuse me, this particular portal is actually to help staff members. We've got a student portal as well, but this is an internal portal to help staff members to log queries around human resources and ICT. So if they've got an issue with their printer, or if they've got a harassment case to log, or whatever the case may be, they can do that in a simple self-service way. Because it's not only about looking after your students, it's also looking after your colleagues, looking after faculty, looking after all the different departments that are supporting students. We want to make sure that we're all providing that high level of service across the board. The other thing that I wanted to talk about at this point was, of course, the connection of technology back into things like buildings and people and awareness and where they are. And so in 2 weeks' time, we're having that webinar, as I spoke about, around the Connected Campus and how can we do things. We're actually going to be taking you through an example of how we've worked with Sulplaki University to help them to administer and control meals, and how they give out meals at the various catering facilities around their various campuses, and how they control which students have got access to what and what they're entitled to. And it's a very interesting case study that Graham's going to take us through. And so yeah, we can connect students and buildings and access control and all kinds of things. You know, it's not just about handling queries. This is about an all-encompassed, fully connected studying and learning environment, which is the most important.